He glanced at her name tag, then at her scuffed shoes, and smiled, not kindly, but knowingly. To Sebastian Crow, the woman standing in front of him wasn't a person. She was scenery, a background prop in his private performance of superiority. He believed that by ordering in an archaic, long-dead Occitan dialect, he could strip her of dignity in front of his companion. That language, obscure, academic, forgotten, was his weapon, and like everything else in his life, he assumed it would work. Sebastian Crow had built his fortune on the belief that money made him untouchable. He was wrong. What he didn't know was that the woman balancing his wine glass wasn't just a server named Nyla Reed, and the words she was about to speak wouldn't just silence the dining room, they would unravel everything he thought he owned. This is the story of how arrogance collapsed under the weight of its own voice. Inside the Arden Room, Manhattan's most discreet and powerful dining room, the air carried the scent of aged Bordeaux, saffron risotto, and inherited privilege. For Nyla Reed, however, it smelled like desperation, the kind that comes from standing invisible in a room full of people who believe they matter more than you. And tonight, invisibility was about to end. The woman he tried to erase. He glanced at her name tag, then at her shoes, and smirked. To Sebastian Crow, the woman standing before him wasn't a person. She wasn't even an inconvenience. She was Dacre, living, breathing background furniture in a room built for people like him. Nyla Reed. That was the name printed in black plastic letters on her chest. Her shoes told a more useful story, scuffed at the toes, the soles slightly separating on the right side, cheap, functional, invisible. Sebastian didn't need to ask questions. He already knew everything he needed to know. Or so he thought. The Arden Room was quiet in the way only very expensive places were, not silent, but restrained. Conversations stayed low. Laughter was controlled. Nothing here was accidental. Crystal glasses caught the warm glow of recessed lights. Linen tablecloths fell in perfect symmetry. The scent in the air was layered. Aged Bordeaux, saffron risotto, truffle oil, and something else, inherited confidence. Manhattan money. For Nyla Reed, however, it smelled like desperation. She stood straight despite the ache in her lower back, 12 hours on her feet, no break longer than 5 minutes. Her white shirt, crisp but tight across the shoulders, had been bought when she still believed this job would be temporary. She held a leather-bound menu folder in one hand and balanced a wine glass in the other. "Good evening," she said calmly. "Welcome to the Arden Room." Sebastian didn't look up. His companion, Claire Whitmore, shifted slightly in her seat. She was elegant in a quiet way, muted rose dress, minimal jewelry, posture trained by years of private schools and polite expectations. She offered Nyla a small, apologetic smile. Sebastian finally spoke. "Water." "No, please." "No eye contact." "Still or sparkling?" Nyla asked. A pause. "Still." She nodded once and turned to leave. "Wait." She stopped. Sebastian looked at her now, really looked, the way men like him looked at people they believed existed beneath them, with curiosity, not interest. "You work here long?" "Yes, sir." "How long?" "Almost a year." He smiled faintly. "Then you've learned how things work?" "Yes, sir." Claire frowned slightly. "Sebastian." He ignored her. "Let's test that," he said. Nyla felt it before it happened, that subtle tightening in the air, the shift that came right before humiliation. Sebastian leaned back in his chair, folded his hands together, and spoke. Not in English, not in French, but in Old Occitan, a language extinct for centuries, preserved only in academic journals, medieval manuscripts, and university lecture halls. The words were soft, elegant, ancient. They hung in the air like a trap. The table beside them went quiet. A server at the bar paused mid-pour. Claire's eyes widened, not impressed, but uncomfortable. Sebastian waited. He expected confusion, embarrassment, for Nyla to stammer, apologize, call a manager. Because that was the point. This wasn't about ordering wine. It was about power. And Sebastian Crow believed power always won. Nyla felt something crack open inside her chest. A door she had sealed shut years ago. She looked at him and answered in perfect old Occitan. Not only fluent, but precise. Her pronunciation was clean, her grammar immaculate, her tone calm. She didn't stop there. She corrected him, explained the nuance of his phrasing, the historical context, the error he'd made in verb choice. Then, seamlessly, she translated it into English. "I'll bring the bottle you requested," she finished gently. "And if you prefer another language, you're welcome to choose." Silence slammed into the room. Sebastian's smile vanished. Claire stared at Nyla, her hands slowly rising to her mouth, not in mockery, but shock. At the bar, someone let out a quiet breath. Sebastian's jaw tightened. "Interesting," he said slowly. "Very interesting." Nyla nodded once and walked away. She didn't see the way Sebastian's eyes followed her. Not with admiration, with calculation. Who Nyla Reid used to be. 2 years earlier, Nyla Reid had stood beneath the vaulted stone ceiling of a Cambridge lecture hall, her voice echoing with confidence. Her paper language as erasure, power, class, and the death of regional speech had drawn a standing room-only audience. She had been 27, brilliant, unapologetic. Her advisor had called her work dangerous in the best way. Then her phone rang at 3:06 a.m. Her mother. A stroke. Emergency surgery. Insurance delays. Bills that stacked faster than hope. Nyla left Cambridge temporarily. Temporary became permanent. Scholarship funds disappeared into hospital invoices. Savings followed. Dreams quietly suffocated. Now she wore a bow tie and smiled at people who couldn't pronounce her name correctly. Back to the present. Behind the service doors, Nyla leaned against the prep counter, her heart racing. "You okay?" whispered Lena, another server. Nyla nodded. "I think I just ruined my life." Lena smirked. "Worth it." "Maybe." But men like Sebastian Crow didn't forget. And they didn't forgive. The accusation. The rest of the meal passed in tight silence. Sebastian barely touched his food. Claire ate slowly, her eyes distant. When Nyla returned with the check, Sebastian took it without a word. Moments later, "Where's my card?" The words cut through the room. Nyla froze. "My card," Sebastian said louder, "it's gone." Conversations stopped. Marcus Hale, the floor manager, appeared instantly. "Mr. Crow." "She took it," Sebastian said calmly, pointing at Nyla. She was the last one to touch it. The accusation hit like ice water. "I didn't," Nyla began. "Check her," Sebastian said. "Now." This wasn't about money. This was retaliation. Nyla felt the room closing in. Her job, her income, her mother's care, all hanging by a thread. And that's when the wrong man stood up. A chair scraped softly behind them. An older man rose from table 6. Tall, silver-haired, quiet authority. Henry Caldwell. The owner. The founder. The Arden Room existed because of him. "That won't be necessary," he said. His voice carried. Sebastian turned, irritated. "This is a private." "It's my restaurant," Caldwell replied calmly. The room went dead. The language of reckoning. The silence inside the Arden room was no longer elegant. It was heavy. The kind of silence that arrived when power shifted, when people sensed instinctively that something irreversible had just begun. Henry Caldwell stood with his hands folded behind his back, posture straight, eyes steady. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Sebastian Crowe felt the room tilt. "This is unnecessary drama," Sebastian said, forcing a thin smile. "My card is missing. I expect basic professionalism." Henry Caldwell looked at him the way one might look at a man speaking loudly at a funeral. "Mr. Crowe," he said calmly, "in the 38 years this restaurant has existed, we have never once accused a member of our staff without evidence." Sebastian scoffed. "Then perhaps tonight is a first." Henry turned to Nyla. "Did you take Mr. Crowe's card?" "No, sir," Nyla said evenly. Her voice didn't shake. That more than anything unsettled Sebastian. Henry nodded once. "Then that settles it." Sebastian's smile vanished. "Excuse me." Henry gestured gently toward the table. "Please check your jacket." Claire's eyes flicked to Sebastian. He hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. "Enough." Sebastian reached into his inner pocket and froze. His fingers closed around familiar plastic. Slowly, he pulled out the card. There it was, exactly where it had always been. A ripple moved through the room, subtle, restrained, devastating. Claire exhaled sharply, her face flushing with embarrassment. Sebastian felt heat crawl up his neck. "Well," he said quickly, "misunderstandings happen." Henry's expression did not change. "Yes," he said, "they do." He turned to Marcus. "Please comp the meal." Sebastian's eyes widened. "That won't be necessary." "It's already done," Henry replied, "and Mr. Crowe." He paused. The pause was deliberate. "You are no longer welcome here." The words landed softly and crushed everything. Sebastian stared. "Do you know who I am?" Henry met his gaze. "Yes, that's precisely why." "The UNRAVLING." Sebastian stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. "This is absurd," he snapped. "You're choosing a waitress over a client who donates 6 figures annually." Henry interrupted him. "I'm choosing truth." The room felt colder. "You embarrassed one of my most valuable employees," Henry continued. "You attempted to humiliate her publicly, and when that failed, you accused her of theft." Sebastian laughed, sharp and hollow. "Valuable, she serves plates." Henry turned to Nyla. "Would you mind telling him who you are?" Nyla hesitated. Every instinct told her to shrink, to disappear. But something inside her, something old, something buried, straightened its spine. "My name is Nyla Reed," she said. "I'm a linguist. I specialize in endangered and extinct Romance languages. I completed my doctoral coursework at Cambridge." A stunned murmur moved through the room. Sebastian's face drained of color. Henry continued. "She joined my staff when she needed stability. What she brought with her was intelligence, integrity, and restraint, qualities Mr. Crowe seems to value only when they flatter him." Claire stared at Sebastian now. Really stared. "You never told me this place was yours," she said quietly to Henry. "It rarely matters," he replied. Sebastian opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Henry gestured toward the exit. "Good night, Mr. Crowe." Security appeared. Sebastian Crowe, billionaire investor, keynote speaker, donor, was escorted out of the Arden room without applause, without spectacle. Just consequences. Aftermath. The doors closed. The room slowly exhaled. Henry turned to Nyla. "Are you all right?" She nodded, but her hands were trembling. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't mean to cause. Henry smiled gently. You didn't cause anything, he said. You revealed it. The offer. Later that night, after closing, Henry sat across from Nyla in his office. I read your paper years ago, he said, the one on linguistic erasure. Nyla blinked. You did. It made me uncomfortable, he admitted, which usually means it's important. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a proposal. Funding. A position. A research grant tied to cultural preservation. I sit on the board of 3 foundations, Henry said. They're always looking for people who understand how power hides in language. Nyla stared at the pages. This is more than I deserve, Henry finished. No, it's overdue. Tears blurred the ink. For now, he added, take some time. When you're ready, the offer stands. Sebastin falls. Sebastian Crow's downfall didn't come loudly. It came quietly. A donor withdrew funding. A board postponed a vote. A journalist asked questions about patterns of behavior. Claire Whitmore left. Not dramatically. She simply packed her things. You confuse intelligence with dominance, she told him, and respect with fear. Sebastian laughed. Until the invitations stopped coming. Until his name appeared in the wrong conversations. Until silence followed him, not elegant, but empty. NYLA rises. 6 months later, Nyla Reed stood on a different stage. Bright lights. A full auditorium. Her lecture, The Language of Power, Who Gets to Speak. The applause was thunderous. Henry Caldwell watched from the back. So did Lena. So did Marcus. Nyla spoke clearly. Confidently. Unapologetically. She didn't mention Sebastian Crow. She didn't need to. Final scene. After the lecture, a student approached her. How did you know what to say that night? The student asked. At the restaurant. Nyla smiled. I remembered who I was, she said. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything.